National security has been a daily concern in our everyday lives since 9/11. We'll speak with a national terrorism expert about the current state of security in the United States.
Is what we have here in this country, is our freedom and our security of our freedom.
Then we'll hear about the role of the Coast Guard in protecting Florida's abundant coastline.
So our seaports are very important to the logistics of the jobs we have in the U.S.
But first, we'll talk about the ever-challenging task of the TSA in protecting our travel in the air and on the ground.
People should take great comfort in is the fact that we are light years ahead of where we were right after 9/11.
3 Central Floridians talk about protecting our state and our nation from future attacks. Next on Metro Center Outlook. Hello, I'm Diane Trees. It only takes one trip to the airport to realize the increased efforts to protect our security. Joining us now is the TSA's Federal Security Director in Orlando, Jerry Henderson. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Diane, nice to be here. Thank you.
I think most people think of TSA officers in terms of passenger and luggage screening at the airport, but you have, TSA has much more jurisdiction over aviation security. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we do. When TSA was founded back in November 19, 2001, when President Bush signed into law the Aviation Transportation Security Act, it created a broad range of responsibilities for not only standing up TSA, but then also looking at how we secure the nation's transportation systems as well. So that's really kind of the genesis of TSA, but to look at all of the transportation network.
What are some of the new innovative ways that you're putting screening in place at airports?
Yeah, one of the things with TSA that people should take great comfort in is the fact that we are light years ahead of where we were right after 9/11. Having been with TSA for almost 12 years, I've seen the evolution of our process and of our programs. But some of the most recent changes that people are familiar with are TSA PreCheck. One of the things that we've transitioned from is a one-size-fits-all type of screening operation, which we had right after 9/11, to now over 20 layers of security, and a lot of it's really tailored. So we look at trying to break people into different categories of risk and then screening them appropriately. The TSA PreCheck is one of those concepts.
How have things changed since 9/11? Is it a whole different world now with things?
It really is. If you look right after 9/11, we really had basically 2 levels of security, if you will, for aviation security. Just a small handful of air marshals and the screening at the checkpoint, which was all privatized and done by the airlines to a contractor. So we've grown from a very thin layer of security, if you will, to now over 20 very robust layers, and each of those layers is capable of stopping a terrorist attack individually. And you add all of them together and it makes a very good system.
How do you coordinate? That must take a great deal of interaction among different elements.
Yeah, it really does. And that's one of the things that, one of the biggest changes is that now we have all the intelligence agencies working together. If you think of aviation security as a big onion, and as you start out, if you can buy your ticket online, for instance, and print your boarding pass, you've already started the security check. And the fact that you're able to print is you've already started checking those things off. And as you get closer and closer to the airport, the layers get tighter and tighter, if you will. As you process through screening, then ultimately end up on the aircraft, there are other layers in effect to make sure people are safe.
I would think that you have a difficult time. On one hand, you want to be more efficient and safe, and yet you're also trying to minimize the constraints, time constraints for passengers and inconvenience. How do you do that?
Yeah, it really is a balancing act. I mean, we're staffed nationally for a 20-minute wait, if you will. So we're constantly looking at how do we balance our staffing levels to make sure we have the right people, the right spots at any given time. That said, as we get through the process, if we get to the point that we're concerned about an individual, we find traces of explosives or anything like that, then we become more concerned about the safety of the people at the airport, at that checkpoint, and the aircraft than we are about any individual.
You talked a little bit about the PreCheck program. What exactly is that? What does it entail?
What it is, it's part of our risk-based security strategy that we have as an agency. And what it does, it allows someone to sign up and share a little bit of information about themselves, and then allows us to put them into a lower risk category, if you will, as opposed to an unknown passenger, somebody we don't know anything about. So allows us to offer expedited screening. For pre-check, once you're in the pre-check program, it'll print out on your boarding pass, and there's an embedded security code, and once we scan it, it pops up with the right information. Then that allows us to know that who you are, if you're a trusted traveler, if you will, and allows you to go through expedited screening, keeping your shoes on, laptop in your bag, liquid gels in your bag, jacket on, that sort of stuff. So it expedites it very, very quickly for
So
folks.
that goes even farther than just the time constraints. So if you're a frequent traveler, that obviously makes sense.
Absolutely, and it's just a great program, and we've seen our ability to process passengers almost double in our pre-check lanes.
How do you balance the security with the rights of the individual?
That's one of the things we're very sensitive to. All of our people take an oath, and in that oath we promise to, or swear to uphold the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that we well and faithfully execute those duties. And part of that's making sure that we provide the right level of security, the right level of customer service, but first and foremost is protecting those individual rights. A lot of folks are concerned about the Fourth Amendment rights and how they apply as you come to the checkpoint. And really what it boils down to is that's a search that's basically been deemed a reasonable search based on what we're looking for. When you come to our checkpoint, we're not looking for illegal activity. We're looking for terrorist-related things, things that bring down an aircraft, really everything tied to security. And that's really how that works for us.
A number of reports have recommended privatizing screening at the airports. What are your thoughts on this?
That's really a decision that is up to an airport. Any airport can request to privatize their screening operation.
So that's from airport to airport?
Correct.
I see.
Yeah, right now there are about 450 airports around the nation that have TSA screening operations. Of that 450, about 14 are private. And of the 1.7, 1.8 million passengers that transit through the airports on any given day that TSA screens, about 4% of those are screened by private companies. But TSA is still responsible for managing it. We do a great job managing the whole system, and so for us, we'll manage it either way.
Now, TSA has great responsibility with aviation security, but you have jurisdiction over other modes of transportation. What else is included?
Yeah, our mission statement basically is that we protect the nation's transportation infrastructure to ensure the movement of people and commerce, and that's really kind of that is our goal. And what some of the things that we do to address that, we work a lot with rail, we work a lot with passenger rail. One of our big concerns is what they call toxic inhalation hazards, the poisonous chemicals that are moved around the country. So we work with rail, we work with the bus system, Lynx, Sunrail, passenger rail as well. So basically all modes of transportation we work with.
Jerry, what's your advice then for passengers as they navigate screening at the airports? How can they make this as easy as possible?
Well, the first thing you need to know is we're really there for your safety. And what we really would like is some people to partner with us, to know what is expected when they come through the screening process, help us expedite them and get them on their way. There are some rules that, the water, the liquids and gels, there are exceptions for those types of things. So if someone needs them for medical reasons, we can check that, we can allow them to bring it through. But for us, it's about that process of not checking 100,000 bottles of water every day because it would slow down it for everyone. But
use a little common sense and read the restrictions.
Right, and then understand that go to the website, check out the website, make sure you understand what's required when you come through. Sign up for pre-check. It's a great way to get through. And for folks that may be traveling with special needs, we have a passenger support specialist program so that if you have someone that needs special help getting through the airport, call us. We'll actually meet you curbside, help get you through the process.
Jerry, thank you so much.
Thank you, Diane.
When we come back, we'll talk with a national terrorism expert about what threats our nation faces. Christopher Hinn is a former senior advisor, Middle Eastern Affairs for the Department of Homeland Security, and currently is CEO of C7 International. Christopher, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You have an extensive background in law enforcement. How secure is the United States against terrorist threats?
Well, I think the U.S. in the last 10 years has become very secure. We have learned to cooperate and work together, share information, and it's all about sharing, understanding what we have and the threat of the terrorism and where it's at. And I think naming the FBI, NSA, CIA, and other agencies, military and local law enforcement have done a phenomenal job. And you see them as a child, you see them grow and understand what we're dealing with. And this is here something to become the norm for us, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Yeah. What do you think is the the threats that are facing us? What do you perceive as the most difficult ones?
Well, there's no such a thing what's difficult. It's what we have to stay ahead of the terrorist groups. We have to stay ahead of radical Islam or radicals. We have to stay ahead of all these individuals. Remember, we cannot make mistakes at any given time. If they make mistakes, they will repeat them again. But we can't. And the deal that we must never forget is what we have here in this country, is our freedom and our security of our freedom.
So you're saying that we have to constantly be proactive in everything we do and think?
Absolutely. You know, Tom Bridge made a great statement. He said, you know, they have the time, we have the watches. And so we have to be always on alert. Our days begin just knowing what we're dealing with, protecting this country. Everybody has to be a part. We cannot just do it alone. Law enforcement cannot do it alone. We have to have eyes and ears everywhere.
Alert, I think, is a key word of what you're saying.
Alert and education. You know, education is a huge factor in this. And as long as you can educate people what to do and how to do it and feel comfortable doing it, then I think we could be winning this war eventually.
What about our state in Florida? Are we geographically more vulnerable because of being surrounded by water?
Florida, I mean, anywhere that you look in the United States, it could be a vulnerability. I would say this is maybe a higher on the platform because of what we have available. But again, our law enforcement community has done such a great job. We're on the watch. We have crossover individuals who are sworn from agencies. We have task force. We have a lot of different groups that focus on that specific threat and our security of the state.
Do you think we're any more vulnerable? We have so many people coming in and out of the state. Does that make us a more potential target as a point of entry for terrorism?
Florida is still is a concern, but it's not as much as other major hubs.
So it's actually not necessarily the density of the population, it's the symbolism of what something might represent if a strike is made.
Well, look what happened in Boston. Well, look what happened in Boston. Who thought in a marathon somebody would cause such a devastation to, you know, and paralyze a whole city and a whole country in a period of 1 hour?
Let's talk a little bit about what happened at the Boston Marathon. We're hearing more and more about homegrown terrorism. Mm-hmm. What does that mean, and how different is that as a threat for us?
Well, homegrown terrorism is a serious, serious subject that we all need to pay attention. Again, it goes back to educating our law enforcement what to look for here. Now, if we understand the cultures, immediately our news media, unfortunately, they focus on either the Middle East or Islam. Well, this was not. And immediately we thought, wow, this is a whole different group. They're from the Eastern Bloc. But homegrown terrorism is not necessarily one individual. It's one group or individuals or lone operators who want to, you know, do harm to the United States, or they don't believe in our system or in our laws and they want to convert or get radicalized or whatever they believe in. It's when they cross that line of reason and norm, and that's when they become, I think, on the other side.
How difficult is it then for law enforcement agencies to either detect or defend against a homegrown terrorist?
It's tough, but you know, as long as I think we have stopped many events to take place because of intelligence and working together with other agencies. But again, we can never, there's no guarantee. There's never a guarantee. And as long as we are communicating and sharing information between law enforcement and local and state and federal, And I think the public, I think we will have hopefully a chance.
What are some tips that you would give for people to be more aware of or even to watch for to help keep our local community secure?
There's nothing wrong with being vigilant, know what's surrounding you, or in your surroundings, know who you're dealing with. If you see something, say something. And don't be afraid to pick up the phone, even though it's irrelevant or you think it's not important. Well, it could be very important. So I'm a very strong proponent of calling 911 or calling law enforcement or police or security. Wherever you see something, I think it's important that we make a noise.
Let's talk a little bit about your company, C7 International. What's the focus of the company?
Well, the company does security logistics mainly, and introducing the business community from the U.S. to the Middle East or some areas that they have they're not comfortable with the culture. So it's all about, again, I go back to education. You educate somebody how to, interact with someone else in languages or whatever else, and they can expand their horizon in doing business, understand the culture, understand how they do business, and they need to understand how we do business. And C7 is a company, has been 8 years now, and all we do is trying to build a bridge globally between U.S. Companies and Middle Eastern companies or individuals.
Your broad perspective, what do you see as the future for Florida, for the United States, for the areas in terrorism?
Well, again, it's something that we don't like, but it's a way of life. Unfortunately, the U.S. Has grown to such a point in the world now. We are looked at as the big brother, and as long as we maintain, again, our standards and understand that we don't give up, never surrender, and I think our leadership has to understand that this is a country that we need to protect, and we have to retaliate, that we should retaliate. We should never let our guards down and never give in to terrorism.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
After the break, we'll hear about the Coast Guard's role in national security. Captain Tom Allen is with the U.S. Coast Guard based out of the Jacksonville sector. Welcome, Captain.
Thank you.
The Coast Guard is one of our armed services that is housed under the Department of Homeland Security. Why is it placed there?
I think when you look at the Coast Guard, the unique thing that we have is we are one of the 5 armed forces, but we have the additional authority of law enforcement. And with that authority, we need to operate outside of the Department of Defense, so it makes a great fit for us to be in Homeland Security with that law enforcement authority.
How did things change with 9/11? What is the role of the Coast Guard now with Homeland Security? Was it the same then, or has it expanded?
I think with 9/11, we saw a refocus on Homeland Security and what was going on. It's something that the Coast Guard's done for a long time, but with the attacks on 2001, we had the Maritime Transportation Security Act of 2002 that really changed the business of how ports protected themselves. And then in 2003, we had a visible sign of Homeland Security with the stand-up of the Department of Homeland Security. That said, the Coast Guard's been doing Homeland Security and National Defense since 1790. We're the longest going sea service. Even longer continuously than the Navy, and that was how we started off to protect the ports along the East Coast.
Well, I think a lot of people are familiar with the law enforcement end of things, but you really have a dual mission because you have a strong military presence.
That's right, and I think that's one of the benefits that we provide to the country. While we are grounded in the Homeland Security and work well with our Homeland Security partners, we also have that unique ability as an armed force to really build a bridge to the Department of Defense. And that's important because there's not a fine line between Homeland Security and Homeland Defense, and so someone that's able to translate that is great. And then in times of war, we will actually fall under the Department of Defense, under the Department of Navy.
Let's talk a little bit about Florida. We have some 1,200 miles of coastline, plus another 11,000, I believe, of open waterways. How do you service an area that vast?
Well, I think when you look at the Coast Guard, one of the things you mentioned is we're small. So while it doesn't sound great, when you look at that vast area, we've only got 4,000 men and women in Coast Guard uniforms to protect that area. So the way we have to do that is through a layered approach. And so we start overseas with people over there that are reviewing cargo, looking at facilities, working with our partners overseas to make sure that we're getting secure cargo coming on board. We vet that cargo and those people as they come across the water. And then for those higher risk items or those things where we're not certain about, then we, with larger cutters and our boats, take and board those vessels offshore before they come in. So it's really a layered defense. We couldn't do it as a fence, but by bringing in that whole network, we provide a little bit more security.
We have multiple ports in Florida. What is the biggest challenge for keeping them secure from terrorist threats?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is no one can do it on their own, no government agency certainly, and then you have to have a fine relationship with state, local, and federal, and really when you're talking about Homeland Security, our port partners, those people that are on the waterfront every day, what should they be looking for, what should they be reporting, how can they change the environment in their facilities to make it more secure and to notify us when things are a little bit awry. So I think that's what it is. It's really a team effort. It's really getting everyone on the same page, and that's where we work real hard, is to, as a small service, combine our other partners so that we can get the most out of small agencies and meet common goals.
Do you think that the communication channels opened up much more after 9/11?
I think so. I think people understood what was, why it was important to share information. The FBI even stood up Joint Terrorism Task Force so that agencies could share information easily, face to face. We now work much closer with CBP as we review cargo manifests and look at the crews. And so those information sharing channels have been great. Communications within the port have opened up, so now we have radios that our industry partners, state and local and federal, can all talk on at once to coordinate activities as the ports stay busy.
Now, you talked about some of the international aspects. What is your role for international maritime defense?
Well, I think when you look at international maritime defense, we start on the policy side. We work very hard there. So the International Maritime Organization, I kind of talked about the Maritime Transportation Security Act. That was great for those vessels that are arriving in the U.S., but we work with IMO to adopt the International Ships and Ports Security.
So how do you work with other embassies, and I'm presuming that you do, as well as foreign governments and our military branches, to protect some of our interests abroad?
Well, I think it's like you said. One, we look for those U.S. interests first, but through the IMO, the International Maritime Organization, we can put in these international codes that then provide the security worldwide. We do that. Then we have people stationed throughout the world, and I think a lot of people are surprised to hear that Coast Guard has people stationed throughout the world. But they're there in a liaison and cooperative environment with those governments to make sure that, when that cargo is being loaded in a foreign port and it's destined for Florida, that it's going to be safe and arrive securely here.
That's a very big array of duties to take care of internationally. It sounds like you're already protecting parts of coming here into the States, starting at an overseas basis.
Yeah, and I think people don't realize how important that is. Last year, I think we had $3.15 trillion of our economy was attributed to things moving through the seaports, $1.73 trillion worth of imported cargoes. So our seaports are very important to the logistics and the jobs we have in the U.S. So making sure that we keep those ports secure and open by starting overseas is the best way we can do that.
Thank you, Captain. That's all the time we have for our show today. Please visit wucftv.org/metro for interactive features, special content, and much more. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, I'm Diane Trees.